This episode of Twin Speaks contains spoilers.
Hello and welcome to Twin Speaks First Watch First Listen of Solo, a Star Wars story starring Aaron Reich, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, Woody Harrelson, and Paul Bettany. Written by Jonathan and Lawrence Kasdan and directed by Ron Howard and Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I am your co-host, Pat. You can find me on Twitter at @kidcombo_, and I am, of course, joined by my twin brother and co-host, Andrew.
That's my name.
Okay. And you can find him on social media at Andemonium if you love very specific brand of dog pictures and humor. And today we are joined by two very special guests, the first of which loves Star Wars just about as much as she dislikes your opinions. It's Jill!
I hadn't heard that intro yet.
And on my left, Rogue One put her to sleep quicker than a warm glass of milk in an Ativan. It's my partner, Georgia.
What can I say?
So we are talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, which came out May 24th. So far, it's the worst earning movie of the new Disney era of Star Wars, with only like 14.1 million on Thursday night.
That's probably all me.
Yeah, you saw it that many times?
I did.
No.
One time?
We saw it together.
Our tickets were so expensive. And then 35.6 million on Friday. And The Force Awakens went 119, so $119.1 million for the first weekend. And then Last Jedi was 104.6 and Rogue One was 71.
For the whole weekend.
For the whole weekend. So I mean it's at 14.1 right now, or on Thursday 35.6. So it's like still kind of lower. Anyway,
I don't know why we're all like, oh, look at all these.
Yeah,
it
means nothing to me.
None of us could make that much.
We're not. Yeah,
am I right?
it's like we spent money on the movie.
Like $50 million before the weekend.
Yeah, I was gonna say $14 million is still.
They think
a lot of money.
It'll make like 105 or something like that. Which I think, I don't know if it's at that or not. Just sort of looking at or the first Star Wars movie, like the 1977 one, how does this one fit into that sort of narrative? So like the order of all the movies. It's right before the first one, right? The 1970. Yeah, I'm asking.
The one that's right before the first one is Rogue One. There's a literal hallway scene that hands off to the next story, Rogue One into A New Hope.
Yeah, this one's before that.
This one takes place about 20 or so years before
Isn't
that.
that long?
No, it's not that long.
Well,
it's got
Han Solo is 19 in it, and then I had the dates all actually written down.
How do you know? Okay, never mind.
Someone's actually calculated it on Reddit. I found it today. I don't have it. I have it saved, so let me just find it. But it takes, and there's a timeline as well where people have mapped it out because it was something that a lot of viewers were having trouble figuring out was where does it fit? So in A New Hope, Han Solo was 32 years old, and then so he was 66 in A Force Awakens. And so that was kind of the estimated age. And so
because I think it's supposed to be like,
I thought it was like 10 years before.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. Because it's supposed to show like how he gets to Tatooine and meets like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
Right? Like right at the end there, he's like gonna go to Tatooine and meet this gangster.
Yeah.
Big shot gangster. So it's supposed to show audiences how and why they get there. And then that what's his name? Effie Nest? Or her name, rather?
Oh,
Infist. No.
Infist Nest?
Infist Nest.
Yeah. And that's supposed to be like the early stages of like the rebellion or rebels.
May I also point out that for the longest time, I thought the counter group was called Infant's Nest.
Wow.
I thought it was Infinity Nest.
She could have been Infant's Nest.
So obviously, like, we're super aware of everything that like led up to this movie being like the trials and tribulations of the movie actually getting made, like until June 2017. Chris Miller and Phil Lord, who directed Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the Lego Movie, and 21 Jump Street.
That's a pretty good credit to have on
right? They were supposed to be the ones that directed the movie, and like they had directed the movie like 80% of it until they were fired. But there's like a lot of weird stuff. Like I was trying to do some research before this, and it said that there's a lot of contradictory reports on why exactly they got fired. Basically, it sounded like they weren't like ready for that big of a blockbuster, right? Like to be prepared for that kind of thing.
It's odd that Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was
or like the Lego Movie.
The Lego Movie is like still pretty big.
I think it's something that I had heard was that some of it had to do that they had trouble taking kind of general creative direction, and so somebody like Kathleen Kennedy coming in and having a suggestion they weren't really able to take that and to manage that, and so that because you have to think like for the creative minds because Star Wars is such a like a legacy, and they want control too, and they wanted to come in and you can make it unique to a certain point, but it's when you totally drive it sideways that us here on the couches at home get really upset.
Well, wasn't like a Rogue One? Didn't that one go through like reshoots or something too?
Maybe it was that one.
See, but that's the thing that I have an issue with.
Yeah, no, you're right, but
like with the like Star Wars stories, is there's no consistency in terms of like tone or theme or the kind of franchise that the franchise is obviously consistent, but in terms of what they're selling, it always seems to change in every single movie.
But that's like applicable to like every single franchise. Like Marvel movies, every like different director has a different take on it. Like they still fit into that universe, but like they're not the same like type of movies.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like the blockbuster thing.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy is a comedy, but then you look at like Winter Soldier, and that's not.
Yeah,
like
I think
all.
Especially with like a franchise that's been going
for
so long, it's
so, like,
obviously hard to
different.
maintain consistency. Yeah.
But actually, I would argue that even in that franchise being so long and the differences in directors and things like that, you get the first six movies and it's all George Lucas, and yet there's a divide between how people feel about the prequels and how people feel about the original trilogy. So at this point, I'm actually countering and wondering, like, is it creative differences between different directors or just in how Star Wars unfolds for the fans and in changing times and things like that?
Right.
I don't know.
Because you have to think like Kathleen Kennedy, who's been involved in all of the movies, has some say in like the direction of them, right?
5, 6, and 7.
Oh, I don't know actually.
I actually don't know.
Or 4, 5, and 6.
Because I feel like they were.
I think she came on
later when it. Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
I think she's Disney. I think
she is Disney. She was involved a lot in like Spielberg stuff too.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh,
that she wasn't involved in the first 6, but she came on when Disney took over.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then after Chris Miller and Phil Lord got fired, enter Ron Howard, who then picks up where they left off, including like whatever reshoots were necessary. And according to ScreenRant.com, it's estimated that of the finished movie, 77% or 70% of what we saw is what Ron Howard shot and directed.
Wow.
So of the finished movie, 70% of what that was is all Ron Howard. Which means like only... So of like the 80% that Chris Miller and Phil Lord finished, basically...
Yeah.
30% of that was used. And like they had a lot of examples about what was changed and what Ron Howard actually did. So everything that Dryden Voss is, it was Ron Howard.
Really?
Including the actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had, where's his name? Michael K. Williams from The Wire.
He was in Community.
He was in Community too.
He was the prison...
The science teacher.
Science teacher, yeah. Or chemistry professor.
He's a guy and he kind of has like a scar on his face a little bit too. He was like a completely different character. He was still the villain, but he was like an animal-human hybrid. And because he couldn't make any of the reshoots, they brought in Paul Bettany instead.
Wow. And he did really well.
Yeah, I really liked him.
Me too.
I got like
I wish he was in more stuff.
I got a weird Edward Scissorhands vibe from him because I was looking at Wikipedia and it says he's a human, so he's fully human. And so then I'm like, okay, well, how does that explain all of the like scarring on his face? And then I looked at his little blade, which I haven't read up on it, but I think that it had elements of like the same thing that's in a lightsaber in it.
Because he like turns it on.
Yeah,
right?
and so then he sheaths it, and it's got. I think he probably has one of the crystals in there. So I thought that was interesting. And I wonder, like, I got an Edward Scissorhands vibe, like he was like playing with his knife or something.
He was like scarring himself. But it seemed like when he got more angry, it seemed like it filled out more, right?
I think it was like something to do with his.
I
thought it was whatever species he was.
Yeah, that's kind of what the feeling.
But he's human on Wikipedia. It says that he's human.
And like the research I had done,
human or
it said
humanoid?
that he was humanoid.
No, humanoid?
No, it says in this, it says he's a non-human.
Oh.
Or sorry, not human animal hybrid, but human.
Okay.
So he is human.
Whenever I see that actor, I just think of the Da Vinci Code.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. He's the
it's really
bad guy.
hard for me to detach.
I think of the one with Heath
He's
Ledger,
the what? The
A
monk
Knight's
or something?
Tale.
A Knight's Tale.
He's so good in The Knight's Tale. In the first scene he's in, he's butt naked.
Yeah.
He's just reading poetry. And he's
Yeah, that's
butt
right.
naked.
Sometimes it's hard though to like watch a movie and then separate everything else.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but
he's
he's
an actor.
and, like,
And
he's
he
just
was
so
great
good
in this
like,
movie, but
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that guy's butt. But and some of the other changes that Ron Howard brought was Rio Durant, who was like the monkey guy,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
He
little
was
guy.
voiced by
Oh, he was cool.
what's
Jon
his-
Favreau.
Jon
Yeah.
Favreau, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that whole character, well, maybe not the character, but the voice actor. So Jon Favreau being involved was Ron Howard's choice.
Oh,
So he
okay.
actually brought him in. Apparently, like Phil Lord and Chris Miller actually had sort of like an idea of that character, but hadn't gotten anything like really that fleshed out about it. And then there was obviously like a lot of different pictures that he had tweeted out about like things that people sort of, or led people to believe what he had changed or shot or stuff. It was a lot of interior shots. So everything outside, which is like one place, was done by Chris Miller and Phil
Well,
Lord.
no, because you have the train scene. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Outside.
mostly outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, and then like
Train
the last
scene, Kessel,
area.
and
I guess the
whatever
mine-
the refinery planet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly.
No, Cerulean. Cerelia.
Cerelia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corellia, maybe.
Corellia.
Which means, well, they had kind of like said, sort of like the tone of the movie was different for Phil Lord and Chris Miller, which means that like the journal entry scene with Lando, apparently that was like all improv.
That was so funny.
Yeah. And then Beckett complaining about his thumbs after like the cannon gets blown
so
off.
funny. Plus the thumbs.
Hurt my thumbs real bad.
So they obviously kept elements of the original director's stuff because Ron Howard isn't really known for comedy.
No,
To
I
be
don't think
fair,
so.
He's not really known for anything.
Isn't he,
Like, he's such
Arrested
like an
Development,
average.
though?
What's that?
Isn't he Arrested Development though?
No,
Yeah,
he's
in
the
it.
narrator.
He's the narrator,
yeah.
but he's not
Okay.
like.
Okay.
I don't think he's
I didn't know that
necessarily.
he was the narrator.
Yeah.
Oh.
No. She knew he was the narrator. No, she didn't.
He doesn't like. I get all the comedy stuff because it didn't seem like out of place. It just didn't seem
No.
like it fit
Well,
the rest of it.
No.
I think that a lot of the a lot of the comedy bits actually were a throwback and in tune with the originals. Like having just
Oh,
watched
yeah.
some of the like back and forth, the kind of like silly little chirps that they make to each other, I think were quite at like similar to how they were in the original ones.
It was almost like that 70s, like,
Yeah.
Quark kind of style.
So
of, like, the
Gronk,
kitschy humor.
So the little Gronk droid at the end during the droid uprising
Yeah.
that's stomping over the console, like that to me.
Yeah,
that whole
that
scene
is-
was
yeah,
unreal.
That
So
to
funny.
me is
It's an
the originals.
uprising.
She's
Right?
like, I found my true calling.
Yeah, man, that droid I think was Georgia
Yeah.
and I.
I think there was a good level of humor. Like, it didn't overpower the film. You still, like, there were some good laughs, but it was, like, quality.
Yeah, it wasn't
They weren't-
cheap.
yeah.
It wasn't like quippy. Like
It wasn't the Last Jedi
In comparison to
style.
the Last
No,
Jedi.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
was like maybe my least favorite thing about that movie was like the humor.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
definitely it was
yeah.
like totally in line, I think, for this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
It was suspenseful, but then you had those, like, really humorous moments that made you, like, kind of love the characters and love, like, the droids especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so many of those characters too, like, could be an outlet for the comedy. Maybe just like not Kira. But
I actually was just thinking that Kira wasn't.
she didn't have like a lot of comedy. She was like very serious, and even when he kind of like jokes around with her, he doesn't really do. She doesn't bite on it too
I think
much.
that speaks to her ulterior motive through the whole movie.
Yeah.
though,
I
right?
think-
Yeah, maybe.
I had an issue with her character in the sense that they didn't really explain. I don't think we got enough background information on
No,
what happened.
I
To
think-
warrant
yeah.
her
I
being
think-
I
But maybe that was good then because they don't like explain anything in that like 3-year period where
Yeah.
Han's back or Han's doing his thing and then she's like being traded around. They don't explain anything and then she all of a sudden is just like a bad guy.
Yeah.
Maybe that gets explained in the next movie because they're for sure gonna do like a sequel.
Well, I mean, Alden Ehrenreich signed to do a 3-year or 3-picture deal
That's pretty
with
crazy.
Lucasfilm. Yeah, I mean,
One
to
of
be
those-
fair, it's
one
like
of
a
those
pretty
has to
normal
be-
thing for franchises.
Yeah.
But I mean, apparently, what's her name? Felicity Jones.
Yeah.
She did the same thing.
Hmm.
And now
And she's dead.
And now she's dead. Yeah, and that's the thing. But like
She's
because Solo,
dead.
Well,
Melissa
okay.
Jones is not dead.
Okay, Felicity Jones is not dead. Jyn Erso is dead.
but it does open it up for sequels and like spin-off. I mean, they said that he would most likely be in sort of like a secondary, tertiary character kind of
rather than an entire movie devoted
instead
to
of
his-
leading a movie. Yeah.
So they might do like a Lando movie then. But then they
Or
but
even like a
then
Boba Fett
But then
one,
even
maybe.
just watching Empire Strikes Back, like the way that Solo ends and then Empire Strikes Back start, or when Lando's like introduced, it seems like that is like when he's seen him, and then that's when he's next time he has seen him.
Yeah.
They
So,
don't
like,
have an
there's
interaction
probably
between
no
them.
interaction there. So I wouldn't say that like he would be in the movie after that.
Yeah, you're right.
But I could see him in maybe like in a background character in like the Obi-Wan movie that they're talking about.
I
Yeah,
hope
Obi-Wan
they feature
or-
Donald Glover again.
Okay, but if
he was
he's-
He was so good.
If he's background in the Obi-Wan movie, then that counteracts how they meet each other.
No, but like he could still be in it without them directly meeting. Like they could be like, "Oh, look, he like crossed paths with them." It'd be really dumb. but,
And didn't
like,
even know or something.
Yeah, it would still
Or
be
even
something
like
that they
Boba
would
Fett
do.
or something, right?
Yeah. I think it'd be stupid. I can see them because they're doing a Boba Fett movie.
Yeah.
So like he could be in that because they never indicate that they don't know each other. They seem to have known of each other.
Yeah. But also, we know that Han's mixed like with Beckett killed Aura Singh. That was a comment that was made in the movie, and I don't know if you guys know who Aura Singh is, but she's in some of the canon, the other.
She in
canon
like
material.
Oh, okay.
She makes a brief appearance. Her character makes a brief appearance in The Phantom Menace during the pod race. She is sitting above a rock. So what she looks like is she has like a white face and an orange
Oh,
ponytail
yeah.
that comes out.
I saw a
So
picture of her. Yeah.
So she's a bounty hunter. She was a Jedi in training, and then she was kidnapped and then sold into a life of crime, and then she became a bounty hunter. And so she runs with the like of Boba and with Bosk, who's also mentioned in this movie.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat that they acknowledged her in this movie, because it basically, there's all of this stuff with the canon about how it fits in, and for them to throw a bone to that, it was really neat to see.
Well,
So maybe she'll make an appearance or something. Oh no, never mind. It would have to be before, because Beckett's already killed her. But yeah, we were all waiting for Boba Fett, probably like something about Boba Fett.
I was. Yeah.
But
we got Darth Maul.
Which is so it was like so out of left field. I was
It
like,
was.
oh,
I didn't.
okay.
I leaned
I think
over
part of
and
it is
confidently said to Andrew, I said, Palpatine.
Yeah,
But then it
she
was
did.
like his legs, and I was like, oh, it's like the legs
Because
are kind of funny.
you could only see the legs in his hood, and then he takes the hood off, or he doesn't even take the hood off. They just like pan
to the front of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sick. But that's funny because like when they were talking, like before these movies came out, like the new ones, they said everything outside the movies is not canon.
Yeah.
So now they're just picking and choosing what
Yeah.
is and isn't.
But also remembering that things like Rebels and the Clone Wars and stuff like that are
Have
all
come
all
out since
canon.
then.
No,
too,
but
yeah.
But those are all
Was
canon.
that after or before that though? Because like this makes it canon basically.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I brought up the poor box office stuff was because like ultimately that kind of affects whether or not they do a sequel, right? If nobody cares about his character or like the sort of like the lead up to his character, like fleshing out his character, then they're not gonna like proceed with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
and instead they're just gonna go in like another direction.
What
right?
did you guys think of like his portrayal of Han?
I liked it.
Yeah, I did too,
definitely like I think before when they were releasing like all of these early like looks at the movie from like reviewers and stuff, they were all like, oh, it takes some time to like get used to it, but it's fine. That was definitely I think the first like the bit where he's on Corellia and he's like in that speeder. I was like, ugh. I was not into it. And then like when he gets off and then it continues on, that's when I think I was into it. But like it takes that full like scene.
Well, it's almost like you're adjusting to seeing another another actor portray that character too.
I think it was that. I don't know if it was that, but there was this scene where he's like cowering next to the cargo before he sneaks through. He's already snuck through, and he's like got disguise, and he's like cowering. I was like, this doesn't seem like maybe he's just like obviously like a kid.
Well, he was
in
like
that.
19, right? So you
Yeah,
gotta think
so
about
like
that.
I
He was
guess
scared shitless.
that would be it. But I
And
was
he
like,
just lost his girlfriend.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I was like, no, don't make him like don't make him before he's like a grizzled carefree guy.
Well, and that's so funny because like they show him, you know, when he's like in the whatever war that is, you know, and he's like running away and stuff. But then they like kind of fast forward and he's like questioning why they're even there too, you know.
Yeah, that seemed more
like
haunting.
counteract
when he was like, "Hey, well, are
like
we
we're
the
bad
hostiles?
guys.
Like,
we're on
the
their
bad
planet."
guys."
That was when I was like, all right, like that's funny, like that's
They kept to the Robin Hood thing though too, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, even seeing his portrayal of like his romance with Kira in that movie was so much more like innocent and boyish, and then versus how he portrays his relationship with Leia later on, where he kind of plays this like cool guy, I don't care about you kind of card,
but
you know?
Is that just because he's like scarred from it now?
Yeah,
like,
well, I think that's
playing his cards a little closer now.
Yeah, totally. It's like young heartbreak. You know, he's taken that and like learned from it, I guess.
Because she was basically like get fucked.
She like literally flew away and
over and over.
To be
again,
fair,
right?
she didn't like lead him on much either. Outside of like kissing that one time.
I don't
After
know,
that
makeout session in Lando's closet was pretty steamy.
Short though, like after that though, she doesn't lead him on at all. She keeps telling him like, "Don't do it" or whatever. Like,
it can't happen.
Yeah,
I'm happy they didn't make that romance plotline like super like a big part of the plot though, because I wasn't crazy about her character. She was just kind of.
I felt she was a little too flatline.
Yeah.
You know,
she's.
Her character was, but I thought Emilia Clarke was good.
She was
like,
good. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think she was just playing the part that was given to her.
Yeah, we're going from Mother of Dragons to like...
Yeah.
Well,
but
okay, so what do you...
different though. I actually don't think she's like that great in Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
I think she's... Hot take. I think she's like okay.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it
oh
here
my
first.
God. I mean, like unnecessary to add any.
But you did it anyway.
Okay, so I don't think she's that good of an actress in that show. But I've seen her in like other stuff, and like she's good. In this, she was great. So she's like very charismatic too.
Do you think then that like having that last sort of bit where you know she's like talking after she's killed Dryden Voss? And she's like talking to Darth Maul. Do you think that was like a bit of a like we need to flesh her character out in some way, and they just like threw that in?
In a sense,
I think it could be.
Yeah,
it absolutely.
I think you can make that. Yeah,
because it kind of shows to the extent of which she's like been hardened these past few years, and the fact that how deep she's really gotten. Because they allude to it the entire movie. You don't know her, like you don't know anything about her. You don't know what she's capable of.
Well, and like her fighting and stuff. They're like, how did you learn?
But then
that?
she says it's from Dryden Voss. But then,
and then you see
just
him, and he's just sort of like
he's just swinging wildly.
Yeah,
yeah. Like I think you could argue that was just sort of like, oh shit, like we haven't done what we thought we were gonna do with her. Let's just like throw him in there, and we'll make her talk to him, and then it'll be like more interesting. But I think it could also be like where that was the plan the whole time, and they were building up to it, being and like, you don't know her, like you said, but then to have the two of them, they're just setting her up to be like a semi-villain in the next
and
one.
maybe that's why she was so disconnected from
because
like,
she's
plot,
done with it. She's like she's over them. She doesn't want anything to do with them anymore. And that's why her
character comes across as blasé, because that's her ulterior motive, right?
Yeah.
But another thing could be that maybe like a bit of her characterization was lost between the directors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, you never know what
you
never know what two different portrayals of one character, like how that could have differed. You know, maybe there were scenes that kind of showed who she was, or gave the audience a better sense of like her motives or her past, or you know, etc. And it just got lost in the shuffle. Like you don't really know.
If she was supposed to be connected to Dryden Voss, and they recast and basically like redid that character, it could have been totally lost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I actually like did enjoy where it went. I just didn't enjoy like that. Not that I didn't enjoy it, just like that first section of her was not as good as the last section.
Can we discuss the
giant
octopus in the room?
The giant octopus in the room.
The giant octopus in the room?
Alright, you've been building up to this all night.
Yeah, you're
Let us have it.
patiently.
I watched that, and my first thought was, what are they doing? I understand like maybe the allusions to what were you saying, Pat?
Oh, Cthulhu?
Yeah.
Cthulhu, yeah.
But it just seemed like so unnecessary considering they were already near like a gravity suction essentially. Like
they flew into a literal storm.
This is the thing. Yeah, they flew into a literal storm. A
of no way of getting out.
The Empire is following them. B
they have no map.
They don't have a map. They are near a gravity suction, and then they were just like, we're gonna chuck in there a giant octopus,
a flying octopus.
Yeah. That's just like,
a space octopus. You don't need
that much conflict in one scene. There's already enough tension with the fact that they might, get sucked into this, not knowing where they're going.
Yeah,
it just
because he's like, oh, watch out for the maw. What is the maw?
Honestly, blew my mind. Like I thought it was absolutely. ridiculous.
It was cool, but like if you took it out. It
wouldn't have changed the scene. It wouldn't have changed
because, like, it didn't... Like, I thought it was
going
to get sucked into the maw and then the maw was going to get plugged like a toilet.
That's what I thought, too.
They're going to get out of here because, like, this giant octopus thing got
and then its face gets ripped off.
Yeah.
It's just so, like, needlessly gory.
It was but that was the thing. The octopus was an unnecessary element to that scene. And... I mean, the only thing that resulted in that was that they lost their escape pod. But they could have lost their escape pod doing something else that didn't involve chucking the giant octopus in that scene.
But losing the escape pod is crucial.
But they could have done it a different way.
Yeah. They could have, I guess, like, at some point done something with it. She's saying it, like, with modern Star Wars with Millennium Falcon, it's like a prong. And with Lando's, it's just, like, it's one big piece. So when they shoot the escape pod out, it looks more like the original one.
It becomes the original Millennium Falcon. So they needed a reason. And so that
makes sense.
It's a gratuitous reason.
Like,
totally. So stupid. They could have just not had it in the first place.
Well, they could just had them fly into like the giant storm thing, and then like
struggle
with getting out.
We need to lighten our load. Let's launch the escape pod. Like,
or like trying to get out because like the maw already had like a gravitational pull. Like the thing that the giant octopus thing didn't add anything to it.
But losing the I know we're talking about like this didn't have to happen in the first place. However, acknowledging that they put this goddamn thing in it, the octopus in it, they use the escape pod to like a treat, like they threw it to be distraction, and then it was like
but then what we're saying is that like if you didn't have the escape pod and you didn't have the octopus, the same result happened because it doesn't like pull them back.
No,
except
it just like burns up.
I feel like this argument could keep on going.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. Let me be clear. Like I actually love the octopus thing. I thought it was fucking cool. Are you
guys sleeping in the same bed right now?
So we were talking about it yesterday, and it's like I thought it was so cool because it reminded me of like. Cthulhu or something, right?
Like zoom out of it was just like it was enormous, and then it looked like a demon too. Like,
but then like we're walking back, or like after seeing the movie, it's like, wait, why was that in the movie? Like, where did that even come from? Like, there's no reference to it. It's just there.
It was like they were like, what can we put in space that is the farthest thing from space? Underwater, ocean, shark, whale. I know. Let's stick a fucking octopus.
Do you know what?
Octopus in space.
It was like 6 sharks like tethered together, and they were like, it breathes in space.
It has rockets.
But when Han Solo gets over the spice trade and he turns to trading those creatures in
The
Force
they
Awakens,
maybe
they kind of look alike. So maybe it was a bit of a throwback. I don't know.
It was like, and they'd have no need to explain that in Force Awakens.
Not at all. They have no need for them.
Yeah, I guess.
So I guess
if we're
I just thought of this now. I just thought of this now. I heard on the radio the other day that there was like a study done.
CBC?
It might have been. It probably was. I heard on the radio that there was like a study done, and it was a non-scientific study that octopuses are from space.
Somebody
and like there was
that.
like this giant science study of it being like, no, there's no plausibility from them being from space. And they're like, well, I don't know.
But maybe space.
It could be maybe. And they're like, it's a great idea, but it's not true. And it's like, well, maybe, you know.
Maybe.
So I just realized that maybe that's
I
what they were
would have liked the movie
but...
more if the octopus wasn't there.
Really? That
but
would have
been
really
have that much.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
because it was
she
so
was like...
because the movie was really entertaining. The plot was good. It was so much better than like, oh, we ran out of fuel and we're just sitting here. kind of thing.
Oh.
You know, like it was
The
Last
Dig at the
Jedi.
Last Jedi.
it was entertaining.
Jordan's dislike of The Last Jedi.
You know,
Becoming
there was
more
tension.
and more
There was like
apparent.
a little romance. You know,
Romance.
I love the romance
But
between
then-
Donald Glover and the robot.
Yeah. that's
Let me just
great.
say that.
That's great.
I love the line where it's like, how does that work? And she goes, it works. And I was like, it doesn't. It absolutely does not.
Okay, sorry,
She
go
was
on.
barely held together, that robot.
Oh, yeah.
She was just
But those
asking-
hips and that sachet, no wonder she was the head of the uprising.
Yeah, she had like
Yeah,
a
I really liked her
swagger,
character.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, go on.
My point was just that
You're on a tangent.
But apart from removing
that
the
was-
squid thing, you
it
would
was
have
like
liked
they
it.
wanted.
Yeah.
It was the ridiculous moment in the movie for me where I just thought, what the hell were they thinking?
So I see, and then I see like they add these weird creatures into these movies because we also have to remember that we're not always the target audience. Like kids are, and marketing. And yes, they're not
Yeah.
going to market a space
Yeah, I would
octopus.
disagree that was like.
And
But
I guess
they
like the
throw these
small
things
market of
in
like
there.
Lovecraft fans
Yeah.
Throw
too.
these things in there for the people that are going to like it.
Yeah.
You know,
And you guys
Yeah.
liked it. I mean, I'm obviously
Yeah,
the
I
odd
liked
man
it.
out.
I mean, I get it. I get like
You're
why it shouldn't work and why like they shouldn't have done it, but like at the same time, like I thought it was sick.
So what did sorry, just going back to like reshoots and stuff and like Ron Howard, and did you think that, so telling you now that like what was apparently redone by Ron Howard, do you think it was noticeable at all?
No.
Like if I didn't know better,
I
I,
didn't
wouldn't
know.
have even
No.
yeah.
You
I
told
think
me after
if-
the movie.
Yeah,
and
and
I-
that's exactly.
Like I went into it like knowing that. And,
Yeah, so
like,
did I.
Going into it and like trying to pick it out, it doesn't. You can't at all. Like I get maybe the comedy part, and that's kind of what I thought, but like at the same time, it wasn't like in any like it wasn't noticeable enough.
I think it's one of those things where like they probably did so much editing to blend it.
To make it seem like it was sort of
Seamless.
continuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell the difference. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have had any idea.
Which I think is good. Like I think definitely that was maybe one of the cripples of the movie too, because obviously people sort of knew that stuff going into it and being like, okay, well, like this is going to be a mess. I'm sort of expecting not to like it that much, or even like getting ready to dislike it.
Yeah.
But like, there's no way of telling,
Yeah.
really.
No.
I mean, I guess like some of the humor stuff that's in the movie is Chris Miller and Phil Lord, but
You would. Yeah.
apart
you
from
would still
that,
have
like there's no way of
knowing.
telling.
yeah, I feel like I'm not well versed in Ron Howard stuff versus their
Well-
stuff to be able to be like, oh, that's so Ron Howard.
Can you
Like, we're
name a
best
Ron
friends?
Howard
Like,
movie?
can
I know
you-
that's like kind of a ridiculous thing to
What's
say.
that
but-
that one with Chris Hemsworth and he's on the ocean?
Oh,
Darkest Hour? No,
Miley
that's a different
Cyrus
one.
movie.
What? No.
the
What?
Miley Cyrus movie?
Yeah.
No.
What?
Is Miley Cyrus is in that movie?
The last song.
Is that Ron Howard? Ron
Watching
Howard's
Heartbreak
masterpiece, The
Film.
Last
And
Song.
then he was
Based
in
on the
other
book
Chris
by Nicholas
Hemsworth
Sparks.
movie with that German guy that was also in Civil War. Daniel
Fury?
Brühl.
Bueller or something? Brol?
Bueller.
Yeah, we have to cut this part.
Yeah.
Bueller.
Okay, but suffice to say, that's my point. Like, I don't
That's-
know enough about
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
Okay.
thought
I
that
don't
was
know
you were
enough
making a pun. I was
about
like, what?
either of them to be able to like
Yeah.
feel it was disjointed.
Yeah, right?
That movie flowed, for
And
me,
I don't-
and that's that.
I think like
I think it
as
did flow
far
really
as
well.
yeah, and I think the look of the movie was definitely more to do with the cinematographer, and I think that was what made it harder to tell
Mm-hmm.
the difference because it looked like amazing. That whole movie
Oh, yeah.
was so good.
There's
Yeah.
definitely
There's so
super
many
well shot.
scenes that look so great. There was that one from the trailer where they're on like the refinery plant and they're all lined up and stuff, and he unclicks his holster. That scene is so not like
That
good
was cool.
looking. Like there's so much good lighting in that scene.
Well, even in
Yeah.
the opening scene where they're just like he's racing through.
Yeah, so much of that.
You know,
looks
that
so
planet.
good.
It's like it was.
And
such
you know that's so much
nice and-
CGI too.
Oh,
but
yeah,
it looks, still
yeah.
looks so good.
Well, it's interesting too that they went through all the hassle of like firing these directors and hiring Ron Howard, but they still didn't make that much money at the box office. Like it's
Yeah, but I think the reason they
Sucks.
made that they're not gonna make that much money is because of all that stuff.
You think so? You think the drama of like the
Yeah.
production is
Drove
hindering-
people away.
Maybe.
I was looking at some
But
of
I've-
the audience
yeah.
scores before the movie had even come out, and people were like, "This is not my Star Wars movie. I'm not gonna see this 1 star." Like people are already like rating it. We're rating it
Before
like
seeing
before the
it.
movie even came out,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Fuck this movie."
Not my president.
Yeah. Oh my god, hot take over there. So many people were like already shitting on that movie before it even came out, and they hadn't even seen it yet. So like, I feel like so many people are not going to see it just out of spite.
However, I guess you could say that the make the point of saying that you would want to see it just to see, like, you know, if it wasn't as good as we all thought it was, you would want to go and see it because you want to see a train wreck kind of thing.
But
yeah,
also,
I guess, yeah. But then it was also getting like pretty good reviews, and I think they were smart in releasing reviews before the movie came out.
as a Star Wars fan, like, I would like to be able to engage in a conversation about maybe why I didn't appreciate a movie as much as I did, or have a comparative conversation like we're having now, instead of just
shitting on it before you
shitting on
see
it.
Yeah, right.
Like, what is my grounds to do that? I mean, I consider myself a Star Wars fan. How can I be a Star Wars fan with not being able to reference all of them, including the holiday special, which we will not talk about right now.
Yeah, but that happens with like all universe franchise movies too. Like, there's so many like Marvel DC movies that are like that too. They just like shit on them and like before they even come out. What?
Yeah, you haven't seen Justice League. That's right.
Yeah,
I have.
Oh yeah, you were there.
I was there.
Yeah.
See, but as somebody
What
who
a train
doesn't
wreck.
know that much about the franchise, I thought that this was a better movie than The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
You
I
did.
think this one, I like this one better, but I also like really like the Rogue One, and I think Rogue One
really
and
liked Rogue
Last
One as
Jedi
well.
are so different.
But
as
that's
well.
the thing, because they are different tone than sort of like
Yeah.
The Last
Yeah,
Jedi
so
and Force
That's
Awakens.
true. I guess like
They're not necessarily like Jedi Star Wars movies. They're
These
like
ones
heist
are
movies,
one-off
or they're
ones.
like
But-
space westerns or
And,
whatever.
and I have been finding that The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens have been
but
very...
those are so cookie cutter too,
cookie
right?
cutter
Like,
and very...
Well, it's hero's journey
yeah.
Yeah.
to a T.
And these
like,
ones
They're
are so
following
different.
that linear narrative. Yeah.
made for
A broader
younger
audience.
viewer and
Oh, yeah.
a broader audience,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like, I'm not upset about that.
But that's
what I
the
need to
that's
be
the
clear,
blockbuster. Yeah.
Is that I'm not upset that that's the route that they went.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
However, these little side
But-
stories, like if we get a Kenobi story,
yeah,
I'm going and if Ewan McGregor was in it, I would lose my mind, because these are the one-offs that develop the characters further instead of trying to get us to like, they're trying to help us fall more in love with the characters we already
Yeah.
loved,
Yeah.
instead of trying to make us introduce us and trying to really entice us into other characters.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like this.
So that's what I like about these side stories.
Because
think-
like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi they're kind of, I don't want to use the word pandering, but they are pandering
Yeah,
to
they
like
are.
no, I
to
would
bring
agree.
more people in, instead of being like
Go for
Solo. You guys like Han Solo? We're gonna like flesh him out a little
But
bit,
this
And
is-
you're
we're
gonna
gonna
like
like
these
but that's
little...
we're gonna
exactly
cater
little
to like the
bits.
fan service a little
but
bit.
that's
You know,
exactly why
You guys
they
heard of
made
the Kessel
this
Run?
movie.
Yeah,
Right?
well,
no,
exactly.
but that's exactly
Yeah.
and that's like why they made this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, there was a joke I kept seeing, and was like, this movie was just gonna be how Han Solo got his vest, because that's what it seemed like. Like, where were they gonna go? Like,
I wonder where you got
you
this.
you
Also-
start with Han Solo, and you know that he survives through that movie. Like, there's not gonna be any change there,
Yeah.
and like the characters, like Lando and Chewie and Han are all gonna survive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you sort of have to like surround them by other characters to make it more interesting.
But
Yeah.
I think the fact that you're introduced to Han in the first movie being like associated with Jabba and these gangsters, that's enticing. You want to
Oh, yeah.
watch.
Yeah,
story.
so like
That's why
I
you
can
want
see
to know
that-
how he got to that
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
which
wanna
I
know,
can
like,
see in
what
the
he went
next one.
through.
If they do a sequel, like that's 100% what they're doing.
Which, going off that point, introducing the fact that he even had a love interest before,
Leia.
Yeah.
before Leia,
Yeah.
is interesting as well, because like we see, like you said before, like we see him interact with Leia,
Yeah,
and it's kind of like this, he's sort of like pushing her away,
yeah.
Yeah.
or he's like more closed off. But like, how did he get to that point? You know,
Mhm.
like we're sort of seeing him step into that
And Kira
character.
is actually also not the only love interest that Han Solo has ever had before Leia. It's in some of the expanded universe in the comic books. There's one that they introduced her, and she actually, I didn't read them, but he has another love interest as well. And that was like
Interesting.
earth shattering for people, because it's like, no, Han and Leia till I die.
Yeah,
You know, I have
So
I love
maybe-
you, I know tattooed on my
Maybe
wrist.
maybe they won't like canonize that.
No, and it's
and
entirely
they might,
possible
yeah,
not.
yeah.
But we need to expect and appreciate that these characters have backstories before.
Well, that's what
A New Hope,
these movies are
before-
getting like the chance to expand on. Like,
Yeah.
if they do an Obi-Wan movie, he
Yeah.
dies so early in A New Hope.
Yeah.
And then, like, you have 1, 2, and 3 that he's in, but, like, you don't have anything.
Yeah. I'd love
You
to
know?
see why he ends up like I know why, but I'd
On
love to see
Tatooine?
him. I'd love to see his journey to being a hermit and to
Yeah.
how he becomes Uncle Ben to this little farm boy. Like that's.
Well, I
neat to
mean,
me.
they think he's dead, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in that movie,
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, he's gone. He's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
gone for a while now."
Yeah.
See, I think that what I was initially thinking about the movie was the fact that it didn't really seem like a Star Wars movie if you had subtracted
Oh yeah, definitely.
Chewie and reference to the Empire and Darth Maul at the end.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah,
you had
it
taken
could
all
have
that
been a
out, if you
standalone.
had replaced Han Solo with Chris Pratt, it could have kind of
And
been a Guardian of
Groot
the
Yeah.
instead of
Galaxy movie.
Chewbacca.
Like,
yeah.
But, you know, and I was thinking,
But,
I
like,
was criticizing
not even
this.
just that. Like,
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
character. Like,
But I
you could have
was-
made a new one.
Yeah, but I was
Yeah.
criticizing it because I thought, you know, like, it wasn't really true to the,
Star Wars tone.
Star Wars, like, tone.
Yeah.
Because they don't really make any other reference. Like, all of a sudden the Empire, like, shows up in this.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was
Anything, or-
odd too.
But he-
like
but
they don't
It was
really
in there
pursue
before
them
that
too.
because, like, well, maybe they weren't though. Because they did say that they had
They're like,
because
oh,
Dryden
they're-
Vice had connections to the Empire, and then they had or Crimson Dawn, but then also Kessel had some connections to him. So they might have been just responding to the rebellion. On
It was just weird
Kessel.
that like a giant ship like that
Yeah,
shows up too.
But what I'm saying
anyway,
is that,
yeah,
like,
go on.
I was criticizing it for that reason, but I think it might be to the film's benefit that the fact that they can make a movie that's adjacent to Star Wars and, like
Right.
you said, Joe, like, building on that backstory and, like, making you love those characters more without having it, like, having to tie it so much to the
Yeah.
To the
you know,
Star
to
Wars
the main
brand.
Star Wars story or
Yeah.
the main Star Wars brand.
Yeah,
like,
it definitely gives them, like, and I think that's why the Rogue One was, like, so interesting too, is that, like, they have freedom to sort of, like, not be so cookie cutter-ish.
yeah.
It was like in a Star Wars universe, but it wasn't necessarily like
Like
a
a
Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't
exactly.
have all this, like, every single element that you would expect
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting too, you know, like we said about Solo was, yeah, just removing him as a character and just replacing it with something else.
Yeah.
And you have like, you know, it doesn't really, the thing is, I think that's maybe my main problem with that movie is that it doesn't really add too much to that universe,
Which?
except for just fleshing him out. Solo,
Oh,
yeah.
Solo. Oh, okay.
Like it sort of just fleshes him out as a character, fleshes Lando out as a character. You know, Chewbacca as well, like we learned that he's like 196 years old. But like apart from that, it sort of doesn't, it's a very small kind of scale.
But I think that's the goal. Like, I don't think the goal is to do anything other than that. Like, I
Yeah,
think that's it.
It could
Like-
be, I mean, we were talking about this, like, Pat and I were talking about this yesterday, like, it could be a benefit, I guess, because, like,
That it
yeah,
is
they
that
have
kind
the
of-
permission to kind of do what they want.
Right.
But I think for, you know, if your expectations are that detrimental for some people whose expectations were that it was going to build on the original story, or it could be
Right.
beneficial to the fact that, you know, you're giving in-depth insight into these characters, and
So-
that might be what people want.
Yeah, if you're going
Right?
into the movie being like, this is going to be the next, like, Star Wars Episode 9 or whatever.
Yeah. I think
you're
as
gonna
someone who doesn't know that much about the franchise, I was expecting to learn more about it through
Right.
this movie, but I didn't necessarily have that. I didn't come out, you know, having a better understanding of what happens in 3, 4, 5,
Right.
and 1, 2, or, yeah.
Except
4, 5, 6,
for
1, 2, 3,
just
yeah.
knowing more about Han Solo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So thinking of all the new movies of, like, the Disney era, what are your rankings then of those 4 movies?
It's hard to say now because, like, this one's so fresh. Yeah, I don't know. I
Ranking
think
it
I like
what?
this more
can
than
go.
Rogue One.
Yeah, you go.
Really?
What's yours?
Okay. I really liked Rogue One. I thought that I loved the way that the timeline worked. I loved Jyn Erso. It kept that we have to do this for the better of all people. I really liked that.
Mhm.
So I actually would put Rogue One, Solo, The Force Awakens, and then The Last Jedi.
Oh, okay.
I found The
Oh.
Last Jedi to be just too slapstick almost.
Oh,
and
really?
Too,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what
Yeah, me too.
It's too juvenile for me, to be
Like,
honest.
like that ranking exactly?
No, just that,
No,
like, the
but-
Last Jedi was
yeah.
slap.
So that's mine. That's mine. Actually,
Okay.
I think that if I were to rewatch Rogue One, having seen Solo now, I
Yeah.
think that it's entirely possible that Solo and Rogue One are interchangeable, but
Yeah,
I am loving
that's-
these standalone stories. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
going to
yeah, me
say
too.
50-50 Rogue One, Solo, and then The Force Awakens for sure is number 3, and then The Last Jedi is The Last Jedi.
I agree with Rogue One and Solo being interchangeable. Like, right now, I'd say Solo's first.
Okay.
So
Rogue
Solo
One.
number 1.
Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and then Force Awakens.
Really? The Last Jedi over Force Awakens?
I
You're
actually
allowed
liked
to
it.
like it.
I liked it. I actually liked all the like action in it.
Yeah.
I didn't mind how slapstick it was. I thought it was cheesy, but like it fit into that like we were watching Empire Strikes Back.
The
and
70s
like,
style,
Nerf,
80s style.
when he calls him a Nerf herder, like that's exactly what The
Yeah.
Last Jedi's like. Like
Yeah.
it's so dumb and it's so cheesy, and there's no reason that movie should have done well, but it did, and now here we are.
I think it did
Episode
well by default. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
By default, yeah.
Well, because obviously people are going to go see it.
Because
Doesn't
people
mean
are
it's
super
good.
hyped.
No,
Right.
I meant like
No, you're
4,
serious.
5, and 6.
Oh.
Like
Okay.
those movies should not have done well.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
they did.
And they did,
And now we have 11.
But that's a good
movies.
point. Do you think that, like, The Force Awakens got its reception because
No.
it defaulted to that?
I mean, The Last Jedi.
Oh, sorry, The
Got
Last
Its
Jedi.
reception
Yeah, to an extent,
because
yeah.
people wanted to go see it. Obviously,
Because
they're going to
it's
go
a Star
see
Wars
it,
movie.
and then
And
they
it's
paid
like,
their
this is
money.
a Star Wars movie, it's
and,
going to be good.
You know, it got good.
It also had like none of this negative press either.
No,
which-
that's the thing.
No.
Honestly, I left that movie being very surprised that
It got
People-
like it was
people
getting shit
liked
on
it.
as movie.
For The Last Jedi?
The Last
Oh,
Jedi,
God.
yeah.
I thought it was horrible.
No.
I mean, we went and saw it together, did we not?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, Georgia
I remember
hated
just
that
being
movie.
like, what is happening?
So what's your ranking?
Okay, well, I haven't seen The Force Awakens. And I honestly, like, my
Okay,
ranking
well,
is...
I have the 3 then.
My ranking is fairly irrelevant because my knowledge is...
No.
Limited.
Don't
It's limited.
cut yourself short, girl.
But, like, truthfully, like, you know. So I would say, I think
Of the 3, yeah.
I would go Solo's number 1.
Okay.
Then,
It's almost like
The
so
Last
derivative
Jedi.
to
The
have
Last Jedi.
Yeah,
to
Last
have like a
Jedi's
non-Star
Oh, but
Wars
you
fan.
hated
Yeah.
you hated Rogue One more.
No, I liked Rogue One. I liked it.
I like the Rogue One too.
I would rather watch Rogue One like 10 times than have to watch The Last Jedi once.
Then why did you just rank it second?
Yeah.
And then-
No, I
No,
didn't.
she did Rogue
Oh,
One
no, no.
and then Last
Yeah,
Jedi.
Oh,
Solo is
sorry.
number 1,
Okay.
Rogue One is
Okay.
number 2,
So
and then...
Solo, Rogue One,
Oh,
Last
yeah.
Jedi. Okay.
And then I'll have to watch...
No,
No.
I was like, what? All right, Patrick.
I guess. Well, I mean, like, I think you said,
Mhm.
like, I definitely like the standalones a lot more
Yeah.
so far
Yeah.
because, like, I just feel like it's a
only gonna
bit
take
more.
one until we hate him.
I know it'll be like a really shitty Boba
It'll be
Fett
like
one or
Jar
something.
Jar Binks.
Or like
whoa! We're
movie
not
about
talking
like
that.
Jabba the Hutt and how he got so fat or something.
How the Hutts became.
I'd be like,
Hutts.
or them on a diet for like 10
This
years.
is the Christmas special.
Yeah, it's a Christmas special.
Kathleen Kennedy, if you are listening, you have not found your next director.
It's me.
No!
It's a diet movie. It's 10 minutes long. It's Jabba the Hutt
Easy, just
running.
don't eat.
Okay, but I think, yeah, because I enjoy these ones a little bit more, I think I would say Rogue One. No, you know what? I'll go Solo, Rogue One, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. I do like The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Like, I do like the
I did
action
not
scenes
like
and
it.
stuff. No,
Like,
I-
I need to
I
make
thought
like
it,
the-
it
Yeah.
was filmed great.
I thought, like,
actually really
cinematography was
Yeah.
fantastic. I
Yeah.
wasn't crazy about some of the writing. That whole, like, scene where Mark Hamill, like, dust
Sorry.
off his shoulder.
Oh yeah.
I think George and I, like,
No,
I could not handle that. Yeah,
Okay,
that part sucked.
All of Mark
Excuse
Hamill's
me.
scenes I did not like.
However, I think, like, for the action scenes and stuff for like that, like, I did like it a lot, but I would say Solo and Rogue One were definitely
Let me
my,
just
are
say-
definitely my
Let me
favorites
just
so
say,
far.
I think if they had taken the slapstick
Out?
out of that movie,
Yeah.
toned everything down, maybe didn't have Leia, like,
More dark.
you know, shooting through the
Yeah,
atmosphere.
I don't want
Yeah.
to talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't
I
even
mean,
talk about
I
it.
maybe
I
would have
have
enjoyed
an
it more.
image of it in my head, and
But-
you're ruining it right
But
now.
my issue is that, like, I don't think that the movie struck a good balance between comedy and plot. Okay.
You shouldn't feel bad for having an opinion.
I know.
That's all I'm saying.
The only thing is, like, it's not that funny.
Like the last.
It was,
like,
yeah,
it's
it was
funny.
like, I just felt like it was, like, so unnecessary.
I couldn't get
Because
over.
who's the comedy for?
Oh, the comedy's unnecessary.
Yeah, not the movie
Like
itself.
movie.
I did enjoy the movie, but like, well, who was the comedy for
But,
in the first place?
Shock value for the like.
I guess.
I don't think it's
balloon
for
things?
anybody though. It's not for. It's supposed to just be for like. It's to fit into that cheesiness as a movie or as like a Star Wars movie because like
Yeah.
The cheesiness
the
of
comedy
like
in
the 70s
the other
style.
movies is terrible.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
I guess that's like George Lucas style too.
Yeah, maybe.
I
Is
just
Ryan
want-
Johnson known for comedy?
No.
No, right?
I just want it to be darker.
But
for
in
me.
Solo, like the comedy was
Oh,
On
good.
point. Yeah, it was.
It
the
was
whole
perfect.
journal thing was like the high point.
It was
I think.
like they added the
And
perfect
L3.
amount. They added the perfect amount where it was memorable without like being
Being-
over.
yeah,
ridiculous.
It should be a joke, and then that should be it. You shouldn't like.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like a point of.
Shouldn't be like zoom in,
Yeah.
show the joke.
And then you're always
And wait for
thinking
the
about
audience to
joke
laugh.
for the rest of the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's conclude with giving our ratings then out of 7.
What?
Out of 7.
What?
Out of 7.
Why?
Because Andrew thinks it's a funny number.
Yeah.
Like that's what we did for
Seven's the
Avengers.
Like-
We're just gonna
funniest
keep going with
Oh
it.
my god. Okay.
Want to know what the
I don't know
unfunniest
what-
number is?
Yeah.
What number?
The unfunniest number?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh.
Wait, did
Well-
but did 7, 8, 9?
Ah.
Fuck off.
Oh, now we have to put a mature language on it.
Oh.
I
You
said
said that
earlier.
within like the
I
Oh,
said
yeah,
that
we-
earlier.
Oh,
in
it's
the
the-
show,
we
too.
already said that for. Okay, so do you want to
6
go
out of
first?
7.
6 out of 7?
Now, okay, I'm gonna rationalize this. After doing the math, it's 85%. It's barely an A, and I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, okay, I think that's appropriate.
So,
He's giving the middle finger.
Jill
Okay.
did that in one of the God of War podcasts.
Yeah.
That's unreleased. Like Jill at some point is like, they're now switching off, and Patrick's now playing.
You guys need it. 'Cause
Yeah.
The
No.
audience doesn't know.
We just wouldn't do it. Anyway.
Yeah.
What would
Wouldn't
you,
have mattered.
Jill, what would you give out of 7?
Okay, well, now that you broke down the math, I was going to give it a rating of
5.
5 out
Five?
of 7, but
Yeah,
now
which is like a
5
low
out
Which
of
is like,
7
yeah.
seems really low.
What is
Yeah.
the percent for
What
five?
is 5 out of 7 then?
71.
71.
Alex, what is 5 out of 7? 71?
71%.
Okay, can I just screw this whole game and give it 80%? 6.5.
What's
5.5?
80%? That's like
5.5.
5.7.
5.65.
5.65 out of 7.
So my
Yeah,
final
it is.
rating is 5.65 out of 7.
Okay, great score.
Thank you.
Okay.
George?
Now this may come as a shock to you,
If it's lower than a 4, I'm going
but
to
I am going to give it a 5 out of 7.
Alright.
If they had gotten rid of the giant octopus, they would have gotten
Okay.
5.5 out of 7.
No, 5.65.
Yeah.
You would have given it a
If
6.5.
it didn't have the
No,
octopus,
not even 6.5.
Okay.
Just
what's your
5.
non-octopus score?
with the octopus included,
No.
Without.
Minus octopus altogether.
5.5.
Okay, and then with the octopus, it's a 5?
It's a 5.
Okay, nice. 0.5.
Yeah,
Very
it's
nice.
like 10%. But it's out of 7.
Okay, well, I would give it, I think my score is 6 out of 7. I did actually really enjoy it. I think it's, like I said, it's like, it's probably like
7%.
my favorite or, interchangeable with being the
Yeah,
top one
yeah.
of the new Disney era.
Yeah, I think that's important to consider. So
Cool. Okay, so this has been Twin Speaks, first watch, first listen of a Star Wars story.
Solo, a Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
Just-
Solo.
You know what, you guys? Any Star Wars.
So
This has
story,
been-
This is
How'd you
interchangeable.
call the Rogue One
Twin-
a rogue story?
A rogue story. Yeah, he didn't care. This has been Twin Speaks, first watch, first listen of Solo, a Star Wars story.
Thank you.
I've been your co-host, Pat. You can find me on Twitter at KidCombo_. This has been with my brother Andrew. You can find him at Andemonium on social media. Jill and Georgia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You can find our Twitter at TwinSpeaks_. Thanks.
Are you guys gonna pay for a ride home?
All right.
And done.